government workers, and we were all doing it harmoniously on these kinds of streets. These houses were well kept. They were reflective of the people that lived in them and their values. And this house was my friend Paula. This house, and it wasn't blue, and it didn't have an awning, and I'm not saying that's good or bad, I'm just saying it wasn't. So we would put on shows on the balcony for whoever would watch them, who was usually no one. And it was me, Paula, and Geneva. Remember Geneva? The Steptoes. The Steptoes, they owned a fish market down the street. The fish market was a big pink fish market in that triangle.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So the other thing that was happening was that the train was running right down these. There were tracks in this median, and my brothers used to catch the train to school to Burbank. Yeah,
that's it.
Not with the ticket.
No, not with the ticket. No, with a handhold.
Not with the ticket. So this is where Paula lived. This is where.
Oh, that's right.
Remember Michael and Stevie and Lisa? They lived here. Then this house turned over pretty regularly. I don't really remember. After she started at the Richmond shipyards, as did, so they said about 75% of all black wage earners worked at the Oakland shipyards during those years. She was a welder, and she wore all this protective gear until one day she smelled something burning, and it was her hair. That was her last day as a welder. Then she worked for the downtown post office. And there was someone that actually used to pitch the mail by zip code into, and she did that. And then after that, she worked at the Oakland Army base as the manager of getting soldiers and their stuff where it needed to be on time and intact. So she did that, and at the same time, she went to Berkeley and got her BA and her master's at age 50. So, and then did retire from the government. So yeah, she worked outside of the home and raised 6 children. So yeah, she was not busy. And my grandmother lived with us in the very early years to help with the children and the household. And then when we got older, she moved into the cottage in the back.
How many years did it take him to build all that?
Not very long.
So he was able to save enough just from
Exactly, from his salary. So whenever he didn't have a paying job, he would work on the house and the apartments in the back. And I'm sure he had friends.
Did you all help him
that
too?
would help him.
Were you old enough? Did you all help him too?
It was all done by the time I was born. So,
Okay.
yeah. These 2 houses were exactly the same, owned by brothers. Remember? Steptoes. Owned by brothers.
You remember that? And then
Geneva lived in this house when it was just like that house.
Yeah.
Now, sadly, I told you the Steptoes owned the fish market,
Yeah.
but sadly, their father was killed in some sort of horrible industrial accident. This house was the most meticulously kept house.
Yeah.
It was Mrs. Smith, and boy, was she mean. If you got anything in her yard, you never got it back. A ball, a jack, I mean, you know, it could be this big or this big. It was in her yard, and she kept it.
Join on in.
So funny, you know.
I don't know. Now this house, this was Mrs. MacArthur's house. She was a milliner. She made and sold hats. Remember?
Okay. All right. I remember that.
And they would be on display in that window. And now this fence was not here,
Right.
and obviously the bars were not here. They would be on display in that window, just beautifully. You could go to her door and find them. This was in probably the from 40 to maybe early 50s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I can remember it, and I was born in 53, so, you know. I didn't know what was happening over here. So, okay, when you're a kid, you don't really have any interest in people who don't have kids, right? So if they didn't have kids, I didn't know what they were doing.
They were older than me.
Now this is where my longtime friend, Annette, her mother worked at the the school for the deaf. Remember Mrs. Hughes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, this was Janet and Norma Gabriel.
Okay.
They are our family friends to this day. I just saw Norma last week. And this was a house. It wasn't an apartment. We didn't have any apartments. We didn't have any apartments on the street at all.
Not here. Yeah.
So as we get further down, there were two houses here. One, and I think it's these two, the two tall ones.
Okay.
There were two Japanese families.
Yeah. What was the Yamaguchi?
That lived there, and they both had been interned.
On this property?
No,
There.
these tall ones.
Yeah.
Wow.
They both had been sent to internment camps, but they came back.
Had their property been saved for them?
Their property had been saved for them somehow.
And did the neighborhood help with that process of saving him? Or?
That I don't know.
No.
Yes, say something.
He lived here.
In
Him and
this-
his wife, and he had a daughter. And with the internment, my grandfather.
Oh,
told
y'all
us-
know Yamaguchi. That's what you said.
Yamaguchi. They used to garden together. And
Yeah.
they had beautiful
The
gardens.
yards were beautiful.
Yeah, in the back.
Oh man, we
together.
thought it was heaven
And
going
when
in
that
there.
happened, the internment, they
Sneak in.
came down and they picked him up. And my grandfather told us the story that he came out and said, "Why are you taking him?" My grandfather, with
Wow.
his little self,
Yeah.
was trying to
Yeah.
protect his friend.
Neighbor.
Wow.
And they were friends
Yeah.
till the end.
Wow.
When he came back, they were friends and they gardened beautifully. And I really love that couple and their daughter. And she's the one that kept the house after they, she used to come and take care of them until they passed.
Okay.
And afterwards she came and, I guess sold it or whatever.
So let me give a little bit of a disclaimer.
I think so.
It is not my intent to present myself as a historian. I am telling you my story as a child, through the child's eyes and through my memories and my, what I could glean from listening to my 4 older siblings and my parents and their friends. So, don't try to look this up and Google it and all that.
Like Daddy was saying, you was going for the.
This house here and the house on the corner of Russell and California were exactly the same.
Right.
Okay, but this is what I didn't know. There were 4 brothers. One owned that house, the other one owned the house on Russell and California, and the other 2, one owned one on Idaho Street in Berkeley, and another one owned another house on Idaho Street in Richmond. And they were all the same design.
Same house.
All the same house, and they were meticulous. Gorgeous homes.
Yeah.
All 4
A lot
of
of
them.
detail inside.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow, that's this one. The second one. And my grandfather and my grandmother were the ones to secure it back in the 30s.
We can't hear back.
Yeah, they
Back
bought
in
it.
the 30s, they came to California and from Louisiana.
It's your grandparents?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grandparents.
They are the ones that provided for us back in the day. My grandmother, she stayed home. My grandfather worked for the city of Berkeley. He was the first city on the garbage truck. He was the first employee in Berkeley for the city, black employee that actually took the test and passed the driving test. He was a driver. And everybody called him Pop. I remember that. They just loved my grandfather. And my
So this was where you guys were. And so the why.
Why?
The why. The why was the spot. Was
Oh man.
Sure, Christy,
We'll move
my
down.
grandfather put a duplex on the property.
Yeah, it was a cottage.
So this is their family home here, these two. And you guys are still owning it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And my brother.
Okay, so but like I was saying, the why was the spot. I mean, just absolutely. And it was kind of interesting because we knew when we could and couldn't be at the why.
Yeah.
If you were this age and the older kids were coming, you need to go. Yeah. What the why is still right there.
Yeah.
Right there. Right
Many
there.
evolutions later.
What's
I
it
give a lot of. Like,
So what I wanted to share with you is that,
sort of like community centers.
oh, I'm sorry. Where?
What was it segregated at that time or?
No, I mean, it was just all black. I mean, it was segregated by
Because
design.
people lived here.
By design, because this is the only place where we could buy homes, was in South Berkeley.
Right. So
I mean, there were written rules and gentlemen's agreements and redlining. So it was segregated by, as were our schools, were segregated by design. So I did want to tell you, I'm sorry. Yes.
Are you aware that Martin Luther King is the dividing line? That was the red line?
Yeah, oh, yes, ma'am.
Grove Street.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Grove
Colored
Street.
people
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
not buy anything or live above Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Ashby was really the cutoff.
Right.
Some drifted across Ashby.
And the only way that you could buy a home in East Berkeley, if you were black, is if someone fronted for you and did the deal. And that's how there ended up with a few non-white people in East Berkeley. So I want to say two things before we leave this and start heading that way. I mentioned the train running. I can remember when Robert Kennedy was running for president. He made a train stop right there where Byron Rumford is standing today.
Yeah.
So I remember that as a young kid. The other thing about Ashby, my grandmother lived, as I said, lived with us to help with the kids. And then when she wanted to move in back, she wanted to pay her own way. So she took a job as a domestic worker in the Berkeley Hills. They had one bus that went up in the morning to take the domestic workers up, and one bus that came down in the evening to bring them back. There was no other bus service during the day, and none on the weekends. Why? They didn't want South Berkeley people coming up
Yeah, to sightsee.
to sightsee. Right. Maybe not. Okay, so let's go this way and talk a little bit about California Street. Ashby has always been a thoroughfare. Always.
Wasn't Russell Street more busy at one time or no?
No. I think that, and you keep trying to paint this differently.
Okay. No, I'm just.
No, and I don't mean that in a mean way. I'm saying this was by design.
Yeah.
So they didn't try to make this a neighborhood.
Right.
We created our own neighborhood. So Sacramento was always a thoroughfare, and Ashby was always.
And that's why so many people of color ended up in South Berkeley and North Oakland, because that's the only place they could
They
find
could,
places to live.
right. Well, I can remember my parents saying everything we needed was right here. There was a doctor. There was a pharmacist. We could get our hair cut. We could get our hair done. We could do our grocery shopping. We could go to Genevieve's Hardware and Variety Store. We could go, and I forgot to say this, we had a charm school Oh, this is Shalimar. No. But it was upstairs from the beauty shop on the corner of Sacramento and I know because I signed myself up and went.
That's why you're so chocolate.
That's it. I just have mine. Okay, so where do you live, Zach?
The Gray House.
So here's the only thing that I really know about California. For whatever reason, this sleepy two-lane road may as well have been the Himalayas. We could not go into 1600 block of Juliet Street. This was the cutoff.
Wow.
Every time we asked, it would be like, who do you know down there?
Yeah.
What are you doing down there? Who's going with you? And by the time you got through all that, you just said, forget it, I'll just stay home. But what I do know is when we walked to school, to Lincoln, which is now Malcolm X, we turned right here, and on that corner, and these little houses here, this little duplex, let's walk on this side, was my grandmother's best friend, Belle. And every morning as we passed, she would come out to greet us and tell us to have a nice day and do well in school. So we walked this way, and I'm sorry, I don't know anybody that lived on this street except Belle.
Where did Belle live?
Belle, I'll show you. She was my grandmother and Belle went to church together and just were great friends.
And was the church also?
Tina, do you know anybody that lived in these houses here?
I don't know, like if they did not have kids and plus we couldn't come back past.
And you walked on that side, probably.
We walked on this side so that we could pass Belle's house and she could wish us well in the morning. So, but see this two-story,
The brown house?
it's green and beige.
Oh, okay.
That's where Belle lived. The only non-black people that I remember were the two Japanese people. And around the corner was a Japanese optometrist.
That's
Oh,
what
I'm telling you.
Yes,
Still
right
is.
around, right there. So
Still is.
we could go, he's still there.
In the store. It's the store with Japanese.
Yeah, they're still not
All the corner stores with Japanese.
Okay, so we would walk, we would cross the street, and right here on the corner was a little Chinese store.
Yeah.
We would stop and buy our penny candy on the way to school, and if they weren't open, we would knock on the door and they'd come down and let us in. So remember, we could go to the doctor, go to the optometrist, go to the pharmacy. I mean, everything right here within our little sphere. Okay, so the other thing that I want to make sure that I give just a more of a sense.
But I know. I grew up here. I know everything.
I want to give a little bit more of a sense of what was going on in those days. When my parents first got here, as I said, they got here in 1943, and then, they got settled in their jobs, and my father really, and this is one thing that makes me a little bit sad, is I didn't pay close enough attention to the things that he worked on in the city. He worked on commercial buildings that are still standing, beautiful homes in East Berkeley, and he described how he would, every morning on the way to work, be stopped and asked why he was in the area. Every morning.
Some things haven't changed.
Yeah. And to the point where he had to build extra time into his commute so that he would be at work on time. So there was that. But it was more of a sense, and then down on University is they had the Carpenters Union Hall, and he would go down and check for jobs and all of that. And the rule was you were matched to jobs by seniority and skill, but the fact was it was white males first, regardless of seniority and skill. But what my parents just said was, that's just the way it is. You know, they didn't like, you know, get defeated and fall to the ground and all of that. It was just, you know, we need to move forward.
You might get out, you might not.
Right. So, my point is, in spite of those things, or maybe because of them, you know, they built a life that was kind of representative of what black people were doing in the cities. So they joined a social club. Because they were not welcome in a lot of places, they created their own fun and their own environments. So I can remember my parents were in a group of about 15 other couples. Some of them lived in Berkeley, some lived in Oakland, some, you know, and they were brought together by shared values. And they had, I can remember this, twice yearly dances. I mean, they did philanthropic things and giving and all that, but I can remember them getting ready for the dances. And my mother loved green, so her dress, either long or short, was always in some shade of green and always in a soft fabric, because taffeta had a voice of its own, and she didn't want, you know, to be like making a sound with her dress. She wanted to be visually beautiful in her dress. I can remember that, and my father in his tuxedo. So it was, you know, it was like, in spite of these things, they thrived, and they had, you know, they created their own reality that was a subset of that other reality going on. So, with that said, that's just the way it was. We walked down, well, let's walk. Okay, so the optometrist is here, two houses in to it. So the optometrist was the blue house there. Yeah. Next to the tall house. This is where we got our penny candy. The last time I did this walk, which was in the fall of 2016, this place was in business. So between then and now, it's gone out of business, which makes you sad, right?
Oh, it's,
Oh, so this was a house?
somebody,
Okay, so this was perhaps a house.
Back in the...
So I can remember also that kind of a hub of how we spend our time, and you guys probably should get on the sidewalk, is there was the San Pablo Park, where we spent a lot of time, Grove Street Park, the library right across the street, and the Y. So those were sort of, and so those were kind of the
library was there.
I'm sorry?
The library was there.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Now it didn't look like it. I mean, because it's been updated. But yeah. So
There was a black librarian that catered to black children at that library. Because I was there, I stayed there after school to do my homework, and she would turn us on to Black history. She would tell us about Harriet Tubman and all of that. So it was really cohesive.
What year was that? I mean, what grade were you in?
I was like in 5th grade.
Now see, that's the other thing.
She had an afro.
That's the other thing that's different today, which we all know. We walked ourselves to and from school starting probably age 6.
Yeah.
After kindergarten. After kindergarten, it was on after kindergarten.
But you weren't by yourself.
Yeah, but we were in groups. I mean, you know, we would stop and pick people up along the way and drop them off going back. So that's how it was. And I'm sorry, Martin Luther King will always be Grove Street to me. I love Dr. Martin Luther King, but it will always be Grove Street. Maybe before you got here, the reason why I wrote these books and do these tours is because not because it's extraordinary, it's because it's ordinary.
Yeah.
And people need to know what ordinary black people did in the day.
Every day.
We walked down this street and we stayed on this side until we got to the corner, and there were traffic boys that took us across the street safely to school. So we didn't have to worry about, anything. I wanted to share with you that, as I said before, we went to, this was Lincoln before it was Malcolm X. And in 1945, my older siblings can remember going there and seeing the only black face was a janitor in the school. And it wasn't until later that they hired the first black teacher, who was Miss Actie.
Yeah.
Remember Miss Actie? Yeah. And so for them, to hear them talk about her being hired and the excitement around seeing someone who was in a responsible job, not the janitor's not a responsible job, but someone that, a teacher, was black. I mean, it was a huge, huge deal.
What year was that?
She was hired about 1945.
Wow.
She was the first black teacher in the district. Wow. Yeah, in the whole district. So, I graduated from Berkeley High in 1970, and I kind of fooled around for a couple of years, and then I went to the University of Texas at Austin, where I got my degree in personnel management. And then when I graduated, I came home in May and got married in July. So I moved from Julia Street to San Jose because I was taking a job at Intel and my husband was taking a job at IBM. So we got really into that whole technology thing and really stayed in that environment until we retired 10 years ago to Livermore. But the point that I'm trying to make is I only came back to Berkeley till 1994, just to my mother's home, and didn't really see anyone in the city or explore the city at all. And then when she died in 94, I never came back again until 2013. So here's the thing. I can't tell you why I came back, but the pull back to Berkeley was a tremendous. I mean, it felt like you have to go and you have to go now and you have to write it down. So there is probably no one more surprised than I wrote these books than I am, because I never wanted to write. I never kept a diary. I never even kept a journal. But I'm telling you, it started in 2010 when I went back for the first time to my high school reunion, 40 year. And there were people there that I literally had not seen since the day I graduated. And it was like, these people are important. Those times are important. You have to write this down. So I sat down at my desk and I began writing. I wrote Sarah's song, and that really was the story of my mother and father and our family and their times on Julia Street from 1943 to about 1969. So it included, my siblings getting married and I have one brother that went to Stanford, another one that went to Cornell, an art professor, and my younger brother is a bi-coastal jazz musician because my mother loved jazz, and it was all we heard in the house. But anyway, my point is, I began writing, so I took the story from 1943 to about 1969, and then I said, okay, that's done. Then I said, but it's not done. So I sat down and I wrote Dance or Get Out, which takes the story from about 1969 to about 1994 when my mother died. And I thought, okay, the story's told. But then I sat down again and I'm writing Perfect Pitch, which talks about that whole notion of Berkeley, South Berkeley, was created by design, and how and why, and what is that symphony, and how was it orchestrated, and what is it today. So that's kind of what the 3 books are, but I can't tell you what the pull was, but it was magnetic for me to, and it doesn't matter, and I guess I'm saying this to say, if you have a story to tell, and I believe we all do, I have a friend that says we each have 10 books in us, Queen Anne. I don't know if that's true, because I think I'm done after Perfect Pitch, but write it down. And it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. What it matters is that people know that it's there, and if they want to read it, they can, and if they like it, that's great, but if they don't, it's because that's not their story, or they're not interested, or it's not their cup of tea, but write it down. So that's all I'm saying about that.
Tina?
Yes.
Sorry, can we interrupt actually? Did you go to Lincoln before it was expanded?
It certainly didn't look like this.
Yeah.
No.
So I've seen in old maps and pictures
Right.
of houses.
Yes. Yeah, no, I don't know if there were houses, but it wasn't all this happening. No. But were there houses?
Far back. It seemed like it was up.
Probably ended there.
It felt like it was here on the corner, right?
It wasn't just in that.
Right.
All that people running around.
Right. But that was the playground. Remember we used to play? Right. Oh, you didn't go there?
No, I went to Longfellow.
I did too.
I did too. Okay, so like I told you, in about 60, the district yard lines were changed, and people on one side kept going, and people on the other side had to move. And at the same time, I moved. I changed grades. I went up a grade. Remember they had high and low?
Yeah.
So I went from high second to low third, something like that. To this day, I don't know why.
Yeah.
But I don't know why. I don't know. Just one day my mother said, oh, you're going to Longfellow tomorrow. That's because grown folks didn't tell kids anything that was going on. You just did what you were told. Oh, okay, go to Longfellow tomorrow. So and Tommy, our friend Tommy Gregory says that I got skipped because I was the tallest girl in the school. So that was her, yeah.
Library was Ebenezer Baptist
So
Church.
this also was sort of being cut off. We didn't go past here. We went to school and we took off back down the other way to go head back home, except I would go to church with my grandmother. And my grandmother went to Ephesians, and I'll show you that down the street.
They belong there. They belong to Taylor.
So we were Lutherans. So we went to church down on 12th and Myrtle in Oakland, but then we'd go with my grandmother to Ephesians, which was like night and day, because Lutheran is 40 minutes in and out quiet.
This was all day.
Ephesians was all day
Noise.
drums and singing. We were like, oh, we don't want to go to church with grandma.
You know what though? I used to go to sleep.
Oh no, not if you were sitting by my grandmother.
I would be with my daddy and go to sleep. I can tell you no. I'll tell you.
So I have absolutely no history on this street at all past the school, because we couldn't go past the school. We had no business down here, right? You guys can keep walking. We're gonna walk down to Alcatraz. This is church.
This is a fellowship hall as part of the church, but at one time it was a college.
A college.
Back in the day, yes, this building was a college.
Wow.
And I don't have it in my computer as to when it was or what it was, but this building was a college. I'm a retired Head Start teacher, and I taught Head Start in part of that building.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's what that is.
I've been here since 1941.
Okay, well, tell us. We started.
My mother had.
Oh, I was gonna say, share your secret, not just your
Well,
history.
it's gentrification time now.
Yeah,
It's just me, maybe one more person that's black. The rest are all other races.
everybody, yeah.
Because Berkeley
Watch
just went
out,
crazy, you know, and now it's the hot
What's
spot.
the cost? No problem.
It just costs too darn much to live.
Well, you know, to that point, my parents bought their home in 43 on Julia Street. They paid $5,000 for it, which was a stretch coming up with the $500 down payment. I mean, they really had to save for that. But it was the last time it sold for 1.2 million.
How many bedrooms?
Well, it's 5 bedrooms, but there's apartments in the back.
Total of 5 with apartments?
It's with the apartments. It's sold
okay.
as, I assume it's sold as one parcel, does it? Yeah.
But my mother checked the record place in Oakland about this place. She bought it from a German couple, who were short people, and it was she wanted to see if she can get it. What do you call it when it's a landmark?
Oh, historical, on the historical, yeah.
Historical. So when they told her that she couldn't change anything, nothing, she said forget it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Because she wanted to add a porch to it.
No.
So she didn't.
Yes. I mean, you can maintain it, you cannot change it.
This house is the oldest house in Berkeley.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So, high five. High five for sure. Which one?
This one here?
Right here? Oh, it's beautiful too.
I keep it up. The mother kept it
It's
up.
gorgeous.
It's really
What's
beautiful.
What's your name?
Do you know what year it was built?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Want to try 1871?
Wow. What's your name?
Eastman.
Hi, nice to meet you. Oh, wait.
Eastman.
Okay, so do you know Barbara Eastman?
No, my mother's name was Dorothy Eastman.
You probably are related to my sister-in-law, because there's a lot of Eastmans.
I found out I used to have an Eastman reverend in Richmond.
That's her father.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you
Reverend
know,
Eastman. Yeah, that's her father.
No, on my father's side, we did chit-chat about
Everything,
Eastman,
yeah, no.
like a secret.
That,
So I know all about my mother's side, but I don't know nothing about my father's side.
Yes. That's not uncommon.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you kept with the
That
family.
is fabulous.
Oh, heck yes, I'm going to do that. I'm glad, because when I was like about 15, my mother was saying, oh, I think I might sell the place. I said, Mama, don't sell the place. She says, oh, I'm just kind of thinking about it. And I said, well, if you do, you better sell it for $1 million. Just laughed it off.
Yeah, no, here it is. Here it is. Well, see, that's the thing.
So my thing, I'm going to go for $2 million.
Yeah. There were 6 siblings, so we had the house until probably 2005. But 4 of the siblings wanted to sell it. 2 wanted to keep it. The 2 that wanted to keep it had no money. I mean, it was just a mess.
It's always a mess.
So we just sold it.
But you know, I've told this house on the corner, the gray house that used to be yellow and run down and everything, I told those youngsters, they must have been the nieces and nephews, or grandchildren.
Yeah.
They're just sitting on the porch drinking beer like they had the care in the world. I said, excuse me? I said, have you taken care of business? And they said, what are you talking about? I said, did you go down to the Oakland records? And I said, and put your name down for the Proposition 13 so it can transfer, because it can transfer. Now Proposition 13. If you have a Proposition 13, you can sell your house to another Proposition 13 house.
Oh,
any county. Any county. So that's still cool. Yes.
Yeah. That's good.
That's
important.
Yes, it is important. You go down to the on 11th and Jackson, when you go down to pay taxes, that same building, and you go upstairs to the right out of the elevator, and it's on the left-hand side. You walk about 25 feet. It's left-hand side, and it's a paper. You only fill out like 4 or 5 lines, you know, saying who your mother is or father, your name. It's transferred to your siblings, and it's and that's all you do. And bring your death certificate of your parents.
Right.
And that's it. And you continue paying.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Well, you know what? a lot of people obviously don't know that because the grandkids
I try to tell people
they're losing the home because they're not paying the taxes.
2 years you get.
Yep.
And after 2 years,
And then you're out. Yeah.
And across Ashby, it was the
Yeah.
same thing
Oh,
on
yeah.
Julia Street. The same thing. I told them
That's where we started. That's where we lived on Julia.
Right next to the apartment building?
No, the big greenhouse, the 2-story.
Oh, okay.
On the right side of the street if you're walking. Yeah.
So I told them the same thing. They didn't do it. Got kicked out after 2 years.
Yeah.
I said, can't save nobody.
They have to save themselves.
If I learn something, I'm gonna
Share it, but they have to save themselves.
This is true.
Thank you for that information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So enjoy my Victoria home.
We did.
Yeah.
Woo.
Gorgeous.
Thank you. It's a lot of hard work now.
Yeah.
All right, good night. Take care.
One quick fact. Deborah was saying that this home here, the green one with the blue tarp on it, is actually one of our good friends from high school family still owns it, and it's one of the oldest Victorian homes in Berkeley. But the other thing, our class at Berkeley High was the first class where girls wore pants to school. It was the coldest winter on record. And at that time, girls were wearing mini skirts. We said, forget that. And just showed up in pants and never stopped wearing them. Yeah.
And we were the first school in the United States to have a Black History Department.
And it still exists. It still exists. This is sort of a sad personal note. So across the street here is a mental health care facility. And in 1970, as I was graduating from high school, my sister was diagnosed with schizophrenia, which she has battled her whole life and has been in many different facilities. The good news is she's had a family to stay tethered to, unlike so many who were impacted by President Reagan closing the mental hospitals, which really contributed strongly to the homelessness problem that we have now. Downtown Berkeley was not the hub that it is now. It was a destination during our years growing up. We would go downtown to go to Penny's, to go to Hink's, to go to Edie's and have a meal, to see a movie, to just be downtown for the day.
Was it Newberry's or
And Crest, or was it Crest or Newberry? Newberry. Newberry. I mean, we would spend the day, and then downtown Oakland was really sort of more luxurious and more, and then San Francisco with the city of Paris, and those stores were like, you felt like you were in New York or somewhere, unless you were black. Because I can remember, this is actually in the book, and it actually happened with me and my mother. I didn't write myself into the book, but anyway, we went into the city of Paris, and as we crossed the threshold, every sales lady looked at us and stared. Not in a welcoming way, but in a very mean way. And I remember whispering to my mother, why are they looking at us? And she said in her normal voice, it's because we're gorgeous. And she went over and found her favorite fragrance, which was my scent, and spritzed herself and me, and we left the store. And so that was my first experience of shopping in the city.
And Hink's, which was downtown Berkeley, didn't let black girls try on clothes in the store.
What years? So what years?
Oh, so if I was about 8, so 61? 1961.